What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Almost said Thursday. I really never know. It's a crapshoot. So good to see y'all. We are going to be going over, if I can adjust my microphone here, going over a story that has deeply troubled me. I've not been able to fit it into an episode because it's so short. So I'm going to record it here with y'all, and we'll talk about it a little bit. And I think I'm going to make this into a side story, as a matter of fact. But this is an early Texas history, 1832 to be exact, story that doesn't specify which tribe. I'm kind of guessing the Karankawa. We'll talk about that too. But an entire kind of homestead is massacred, and the men are basically next door. There's a room full of women and children and a room full of men, and the men basically do nothing. It's very troubling. It's mysterious, but I think it's more a case of like fight, flight, or freeze, and these guys just collectively froze. But regardless, it's a troubling story. So we're going to go over this and talk about it, see what you guys think. I'd be interested to see what everybody thinks. It's easy to judge everyone in hindsight. I totally get it. You'd certainly like to think that you would act differently, but it's a troubling story. We'll see here. It is in, again, Indian depredations in Texas. It's listed as the Maden Maiden Massacre, but I think it's in fact pronounced Madden because it's spelled Madden a couple of times in the story. So I'm going to post a link again to get this book. It's almost mandatory to have it at this point if you're going to follow along in this program. You can get it 99 cents on Kindle. I make no money off of it. I'm just promoting a good book. So I'm going to post it, link in the chat. I'll pin it in the chat here. What's up, Jake Skywalker? Good to see y'all. I'm going to pin this. What happened here? There we go. Replace pinned message. Cool. So grab yourself a copy. Highly recommend it. It's relatively short. I think this is a page, maybe 2 pages. But what's packed into those 2 pages is absolute insanity. It's a charnel house of horrors. And haven't been able to make an episode out of it, but I couldn't resist sharing it with y'all because I know your macabre tastes. So we'll go over this. We're going to talk about the live streams that are coming up this weekend. We have a side story coming up tomorrow. We have the Dade Massacre coming out, I believe, on Monday. Got the hair going nuts here. And let's see, what else? The Seminole Wars, it's kind of the Dade Massacre is kicking off our series on the Seminole Wars. And lots of shorts and stuff. Yeah, lots of stuff coming. We'll talk about what's in the pipeline. But this story, if you haven't heard of it, if you have heard of it, let me know in the chat. But it is particularly brutal, particularly maybe enigmatic, and just it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Anticlimactic nature, I guess, and that it's just terrible and then it's kind of gone. There are a couple details in the story, a couple gaps that just aren't filled the way that the listener, the reader would like them to be. The one part, one of the native warriors is standing in front of this doorway like this, right? He's blocking like this. He's blocking the sides with his hands. He's blocking the upper half with his arms and the lower half with his legs. One of the women manages to sneak out underneath his legs. Her young, it sounds like 8 to 10-year-old son follows her, but then they get separated somehow. And then the father finds the son, but the woman is found later. And that particular gap is not filled. So just forewarning on that. I don't know what happened. It's just kind of left up to the reader's imagination as to how the young son made his way to the father, but he did. So keep that in mind. There's not a lot of foreshadowing, prefacing information as far as where the Madden family came from. They moved to Texas in 1832, though. That is pre-Texas Revolution. It is still Mexico. And the Texas settlers, we've talked about this before, but the Texas settlers are essentially let into what is then northern Mexico as essentially a buffer against the Comanche. The Mexicans were the Mexican government, the citizens of what is now northern Mexico, what would today be just south of the Rio Grande, were tired of Comanche incursions and the constant threat that they lived under. So the Anglo settlers were essentially let in as a buffer force to keep the Comanche from essentially invading Mexico City. The tribe we're going to deal with tonight is likely not the Comanche. It's likely the Tonkawa or the Karankawa. We're in east-ish Texas, so my guess is Karankawa, but we'll talk about that. We'll get some input from the chat as well. What's up, Theo Wise? Elijah, what's up, man? The Sand Creek Massacre. We covered that a little bit in our episode from about 2 months ago, the Saline Creek Massacre. It's kind of a addendum, a result of the Sand Creek Massacre. Anything that we cover on the Dog Soldiers, we talk about the Sand Creek Massacre, but I haven't done an episode specifically on it. So it's coming. A lot of times the episodes on really well-known topics, Little Bighorn, the Sand Creek Massacre, a couple other topics that are really well-known, just don't garner as much attention. It seems like the lesser known topics seem to really grab our audience. But the Sand Creek Massacre is coming, have no doubt. What are Dog Soldiers? The Dog Soldiers are a band of a warrior society. There are several warrior societies within the Cheyenne. The Dog Soldiers being one of them. They're probably the most well-known, but they are, in fact, a later addition to the Cheyenne warrior societies. But go check out those episodes. And we've done a live stream on Cheyenne warrior societies, really two. If you look back about 6 weeks ago, you should see the Cheyenne warrior societies live stream. What's up? Jake Skywalker, what's up, man? I've endeavored to make a Lego model of a Texas Ranger battle. Oh, good luck with that. Legos are big right now. If you haven't heard, Legos are big. Okay, so we're going to jump into this story. If you have the digital copy, it is the Madden. It's titled really the Maiden Massacre. It's listed several other times in the story as Madden, as in like John Madden. So I'm going to go with that. This is on page 196 in the Kindle copy. I'm going to, you guys, if you haven't been here before, I will read the story from the book and we're going to stop and kind of talk about different points of interest as we go. And then later, this will be cut up as a HOKC side story. So if you want the short, condensed version of this, wait a couple days and this will be out as a side story. But we encourage you to stick around for the director's cut, as it were. 2026 is the year, my friend. It sure is, though sometimes I wonder. What's up, Josh? Good to see you, man. Okay, so the Madden Massacre. Reading from the text directly. The Madden family came to Texas in the year 1832 and settled in Houston County, really East Texas, I believe that's where Houston is today. In order to secure themselves against the attack of Indians, Madden and 2 or 3 of his neighbors, as was frequently the custom in those days, jointly built some strong log cabins close together in which they might take refuge in case of necessity. So think of, like today, you'll think about like the hipster idea of, which, it's cool, but getting a bunch of tiny homes and putting them on their own little homestead. It's like that, but doing that in the middle of the Pakistan, Afghanistan hill country. It's very, very dangerous, very, very dangerous. And we're in the middle of cartel country in Mexico and doing so illegally and without telling anyone. So it's quite the dangerous thing to do. In the fall of 1833, in the light of the moon, the time usually chosen by Indians for making raids into the settlements, the families of Mr. Madden and others had collected at these log buildings for common defense. So this is a season. It's, throughout the full moon, everyone kind of had an idea that attacks would most likely come during this time, simply for the same reason that a lot of raids are planned, a lot of special ops raids are planned around moonlight cycles today. Now they want to do them with as little moonlight as possible. No, they want to do them with as much moonlight as possible. It helps with the night vision. Back then, they I wanted as much illumination as possible. So everyone knew that full moons were a sign that raids were likely. Later on, in later iterations of Texas history, full moons will be known as Comanche moons. It is a dreaded time. They're still known in Texas as Comanche moons. Oh, wow. Elite Super Grunt, $20 super chat, man. Thank you so much. No, if you have a message that you want to get out there, let me know. I don't see a message in there, but if you do, let me know and we'll get your message out to the people. Thank you so much, man. Continuing on here. The house in which they were, a double log cabin consisting of 2 rooms with an entry between them. The men, 3 or 4 in number, were in one room, and the women and children in another. So we've talked about this before. Actually, it's one of my first TikTok videos. Follow us on HOKC on TikTok. This is what's called a dog run cabin. It's basically one room, and then there's like a hallway where the dog would run in between, and then another little room. So like 2 tiny little cabin, 2 one-room cabins connected with this like breezeway in between them. It really works well in Texas weather. Wow, Elite Super Grunt, 5 History at the OK Corral memberships. Wow, thank you so much, man. Skywalker got a membership. Wow, not to diverge too much, guys, but that's tremendously generous. Thank you very much, Elite Super Grunt. And hello, Happy Cap. Man, thank you so much, Elite Super Grunt, man. That is so generous. Thank you, man. Really appreciate that. Like I said, if you have a message, if any propaganda you want to spread, let me know in the chat. The men were engaged in molding bullets and making preparations for defense. So they were trying to get ready. They expected this attack to come. Keep that in mind as we proceed here. All of the firearms were in the room occupied by the women and children. A while after dark, they were suddenly startled by... Let me start that over. A while after dark, they were suddenly startled by the shrill yells of a large party of Indians. The Indians had crept up cautiously and had found out that the inmates of the house were divided in the manner above mentioned. So again, a very, very confusing, flowery way, verbose, 19th century method of writing. So what he's saying is that the guns were all in the same room with the women and children. The men are in another room making bullets, but separated by this breezeway from their weapons. So it's a big problem. So keep that in mind as the attack proceeds here. Some of the, excuse me, some of the Indians rushed to the room in which the women and children were, while others stood guard at the door of the room occupied by the men. The former, the warriors going into the room of the women and children, with their tomahawks and butcher knives in hand, easily effected an entrance, while one of their number guarded by the door by placing one hand on each side of the door frame above and 1 foot on each side below, thus preventing the inmates from escaping whilst the work of death was being carried on. So if you weren't here earlier, this warrior is standing like this, right? He's got the legs spread on each corner below and kind of blocking it like this above. And as this is going on, several of his warrior buddies are unaliving all the women and children in this room. Sounds like 3 or 4, the same number as the men present. We don't get an exact number either on the number of women present, but it sounds like 3 or 4. The Indians who had entered the room immediately attacked Mrs. Madden, wounding her severely in the face and other parts of her body. Finally, from the effects of repeated wounds, she fell, and in falling, she happened to roll under the bed nearby. One of her little sons, seeing her lying under the bed, crawled to her for protection. So this is like Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton levels of gore and disconcerting violence, right? Like the woman is severely wounded. We don't know what other parts of the body she's wounded in, but she's profusely wounded. She's grievously wounded, I should say. Rolls underneath the bed, and then her little boy crawls to her as all the screams and horror is carrying on around them. So it is, I mean, this is like Nightmare on Elm Street horror level stuff. One of the Indians struck another lady a terrible blow on the head with his tomahawk, fracturing the skull and knocking her into the fireplace. I don't even need to elaborate on that. Like, it's just getting worse and worse. And this is over the course of perhaps a few minutes, likely not even that long. But this woman is You can imagine a skull fracture and then knocked into a fireplace. What more can you say? The blood flowed so profusely from the wound as to extinguish the flames, and the Indians were compelled to carry on their work of destruction in the dark. That may be, if there are top 5 moments in this story, that's up there. That's one of them. I don't know if that's 100% true, right? Because we're going on the testimony of the few survivors. That's a lot. That's a lot of blood, right? For sure, to put out a fireplace worth of flames. But imagine that happening. Like, that's what puts out the flames. And then this attack carries on in the dark. It just keeps getting worse and worse. Just that one line. It's like one of the most unsettling things I've read in all of my readings on Old West history. At this juncture, Mrs. Madden, who had previously Mrs. Madden, who had previously noticed this is a tough one, guys. This sentence is a rough one. Who had previously noticed the position of the Indian guarding the door. I mean, he's stretched out in this human X in the doorway. Strange as it may seem, actually crawled out of the room between his feet, followed by her little son, without being seen by the warrior, as his attention was drawn to what was going on in front of him. As it was then dark, she crept into a cabin some distance from the house, unobserved by the Indians outside, where she hid herself under some old clothes. Oh, we do get, okay. But this is the part that I wish was the gaps were filled in a little bit more. Apparently, she loses contact with her son somehow, because the son will end up reuniting with the boy's father here shortly, and she crawls to this cabin where she essentially passes out, right? But it's not really explained what happens to the son after they crawl out of the room. We do find out, however, how many women and children there were. 7 women and children were slain in this dreadful affair. When the Indians had finished their diabolical work, they set fire to the house, which consumed the bodies of their victims. Strange to relate, the men in the other room remained there some time, listening to the dying groans of their wives and children, and because they were unarmed, they did not attempt to get to their relief. They watched for an opportunity and then fled, leaving the poor women and children to their sad fate. The only instance probably of such shameful cowardice recorded in the bloody annals of Texas. Now, that's spoken like a true Texan, right? Like, this guy, J.W. Wilbarger, is one of the most famous figures in Texas history, but certainly that is spoken like a true Texan to say, like, listen, this is the one and only time in Texas history where anyone ever did anything cowardly. This is the one instance. I hate to even write this story, but it's the one time that it ever happened. So we don't know that, but for my Texan friends out there, let's just say that's true. However, this is obviously, if the woman putting out the flames with her own viscera is not that's to me the most chilling part of the story, right? No pun intended. Everyone carrying the raid on in the dark. But the most troubling part of the story is the men in a room, let's say 5 yards away, being held in there by several warriors who are indeed armed, right? They have guns, knives, tomahawks, but still, there's apparently no effort made at all by the men to go to the rescue of their wives and children. And they basically just wait for a chance to bail once everything is on fire and then kind of take off. It is unheard of levels of, I mean, like, what else are you going to call it? This is pretty cowardly. And J.W. Wilbarger reads them the riot act here shortly. It does seem strange that these men, although unarmed, could have resisted the dying appeals of their wives and children. They might have rushed forward together with sticks or clubs, with pocket knives, with anything, and made an effort to rescue their helpless families. So he's like just throwing stuff out there, right? He's just going like, I don't understand. He's as puzzled as we are. He's like, you could have grabbed anything. Grab some rocks, grab some knives, take your boots off, swing the boots, do anything except nothing. Like this, just do anything at all. They're nothing though. So he's as troubled as we are. It would have been far better and much more honorable to have acted as they, excuse me, It would have been far better and much more honorable than to have acted as they did, which is like kind of inarguable, like they did nothing. Mr. Madden, when he left the house, was discovered and pursued by two Indians. He had the same, excuse me, this voice is going out. He had the same little boy with him who had crept out of the room with his mother between the Indians' feet at the door. This somewhat, it says the R word, okay, but let's say hindered. This somewhat hindered his movements, but as he passed through the cornfield, he pulled up a stalk of corn and presented it at the Indians who were pursuing him. In the dark, excuse me. In the dark, the warriors supposed that it was a gun, and they stopped. Taking advantage of this, he and his little son hurried on and finally entered a dense cane brake where they concealed themselves. Mrs. Madden came very near bleeding to death, but after a protracted illness, she eventually recovered from the wound she had received. And it doesn't mention this in the conclusion of the story, but I mean, come on, she must have been, justifiably so, she must have been super pissed. Can you even imagine how super pissed Mrs. Madden must have been? Like, come on, bro, you did nothing. Again, it doesn't mention how the child, I don't, it kind of just sticks in my brain. Like, well, how did this kid reunite with his dad? And it sounds like he's I said 8 to 10 years old. Maybe we're looking at like 5 years old here. So maybe even maybe 4 to 6 years old. Very, very young. So I don't know if he just kind of wandered off from his mom after they crawled out of the room or what happened. But he finds his cowardly dad. He finds his cowardly dad, and his cowardly dad like drags him along and then shakes the corn stalk and scares the warriors away. And then they go hide in the swamp. But it's like, hey, kid, sorry to tell you, like your dad kind of sucks, You're going to have to figure it out from here on out. Okay, continuing the last paragraph here. It appears the Indians were so close to the house before they attacked it that they learned the minutest particulars in regard to the situation of the inmates. I mean, you'll see here, but it means like they were right outside the window listening to them talk for quite a while before they actually attacked. Continuing on here. This is evident from the fact that one of the men who had been in the room occupied by the women and children remarked as he had started to leave that he, quote, must have more bullets. He had been out a while in the men's room when the attack was made, and one of the Indians exclaimed in broken English, quote, more bullets, huh? Plainly showing that he had been near enough to overhear the remark. So he's saying like he's going to walk from the women's room across that little hallway back to the men's room, and the last thing he says, presumably the last thing he says to his wife before the warriors unalive her, is, I got to go make some more bullets. It's kind of just like he's going to go do a chore real quick. Like, I got to take the trash out. Be right back. I'm going to go over here. Except I got to go make some more bullets. Be right back. I'm going to go over here. He didn't come back. Well, the wife is unalived. Tragic. However, last sentence here, continuing on. The Indians took all of the firearms in the house. And when they had begun, finishing strong here. And when they had gone perhaps a quarter of a mile, they threw their own guns away and retained those that they had found at the station. They then made their way back to their mountain retreats without being pursued. I don't know where their mountain retreats are. I don't know of a lot of mountainous, but I mean, mountains are a relative term in Texas, so he probably means like a hilly area in Houston County. But it is creepy as well that they were hiding right outside the window and listening to them talk for quite a while before they spring this attack. And it's ostensibly just to, mainly to get the guns, but they unalived all the women and children and just like scattered the guys off. It's a brutal affair. Imagine this is like a cartel hit today. It would make headlines. It would be a gnarly thing to read, right? And it was relatively commonplace. The only real standout, unfortunately, in this story is how the guys goose-egged it. Hard nothing, hard zero, no yards on the play. It's unfortunate that we're sitting here 200 years later and having to rehash it, but I found that particularly troubling. Let me know in the chat, does that trouble you? What do you think you would do? What's your plan? And do you think you could actually do it? Because I mean, listen, We can all sit here and water cooler quarterback it and say, well, I would have done this and that and the other. But the author had some pretty good ideas that I like to think I would at least give them a shot. Like grab a stick, grab a rock, do anything, right? Like give them the high sign, distract them, do something. All right, let's see. Let's see in the chat here what we got here. That's just one I thought like, I got it. You guys are gonna. I thought you guys would really like that one. It's really short, and if you really pick it apart line by line, it's like it's really brutal. It is creepy. It's really scary, and it's also like, all right. I'm not trying to say the story itself isn't funny. It's not funny even a little bit. But the author's approach is kind of funny, where he's just going like, you guys are a bunch of pansies. Like, here's some suggestions for what you should have done. And he's right. All right, let me check the chat real quick. Let me know what you would do and whether you think these guys kind of out, you know. Let's see. We've got a lot of chats here. Right on. Please look at my message. What is the name of this massacre? This is the Madden Massacre. Salija Mohan, the Madden Massacre. It is in the book linked at the top of the chat. Wow, says Josh McAllister. If I'm getting a wow out of Josh McAllister, you know we did something right. Man, let me know if you've heard of this before too in the chat. Usually I don't have a story that nobody's heard of. Usually one of you guys have heard of this. Elite Super Grunt says cowardice. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, dog. It's pretty bad. That's 10 out of 10 on the cowardice scale. Imagine hearing that from like 10 feet away. Yeah, if you've ever seen a dog run cabin, it is, see that door back there and then the corner of this room right here. Maybe a little bit more than that, but you're very, very close together. It's just to sit there and listen to that and not to belabor the point, but not to do anything is like just a story that's particularly hard to wrap your head around, and it's just a blip on the radar of horrible Texas stories. Let's see. Rocks hurt. I know from experience. Yeah, rocks hurt. I don't know from experience, but I'll take your word for it. Even if this is exaggerated, something like this definitely happened. Yeah. You could take a lot of these stories, most of these stories, with a grain of salt, with a sizable grain of salt. But this one seems pretty accurate. You might even see the cowardice of the guys downplayed a little bit because largely you're taking this from the account of the surviving men and of Mrs. Madden. So you might even see the cowardice downplayed a little bit. But yes, this really happened. OMG, she was pissed. Happy Cappy says, yeah, not happy. Not happy at all. Central Texas, I think. Let me see. I need to look up where Houston County is. Houston County, Texas. With Texas, you never know. Yeah, it's East Texas. Let me bring up I'll share this real quick. Just north of where Houston itself actually is. Give it a second, it'll come up. But you can see here, just north of where Houston actually is today, probably a couple hours north with traffic. But I don't really know of any. I'm thinking mountainous country that they disappeared into is more like hilly, but mountains are, like I said, a relative term in Texas. Let's see. The Massacre of Wounded Knee. I haven't done an episode on that specifically yet. I reference it on a couple things on the Lakota. If you see a Lakota episode, it's probably referenced in there. I guess I just looked it up on the map. The location is on the edges of Karankawa territory. Oh, thanks. Josh McAllister's proffering what tribe he think did this. It's also Caddo territory, which were known to raid in Cecil. Yeah, thanks. I forgot to mention the Caddo. Good point. Especially in the early years of Texas. It's a little east too. See what you think, Josh. I think it's a little maybe a little southeast for the Waco, but it could be the Waco. It could be the Waco as well. Yeah, Karankawa, Caddo, or Waco, I think would be our big three suspects here. Battle of Mill Creek, Elijah. Yeah, I could see it. I say like I don't have that yet, but who is Sam Houston? Sam Houston is a former president of Texas, a Texas legend. That's near Canton. It doesn't mention on here. I have to look up Canton, Texas. The hills are central Texas, 100 miles to the west. Yeah, I live in central Texas. This is the hill country. It seems like if they headed west, then I would lean more towards them being Waco in my mind. But it gets hilly north of there as well. It just doesn't say like what direction they went, just that they went to their mountainous retreat. Caddo mound cultures were cool. Yeah, Jake Skywalker, you've sent me some really cool structures of like the Waco shelters that you've helped build. What's up, Space Cowboy? Good to see you, man. Let's see. I think I'm caught up on the chat. Just double checking here. I'm going to keep it relatively brief because I got to finish up this episode. That's why I had to move last night's stream to tonight, and I kind of moved tonight's stream to tomorrow night. I'll do the Jack Dempsey versus Jess Willard stream, the boxing stream. I think you guys are really going to like that. I'm working on my blow-by-blow commentary, but it's harder than you would think. Why did you have to do that? What do you mean, this guy? Waco was one that I thought of too, but I thought this was a bit too east and south. Okay, cool. Same thing I thought. For the Waco weren't known to range too far, right? Yeah, they didn't raid very much. True. Cool. I think we're on this. I think Josh McAllister, who is a very learned, especially Southeastern tribal scholar himself, I think we're settling on this being either the Caddo or the Karankawa. And I would proffer it's one of those two. Who the Karankawa get really undersold in early Texas history, as did the Caddo. But they were really the first tribe that a lot of settlers, Stephen F. Austin, a lot of the settlers that came up from Corpus Christi and Southeast Texas dealt with first. A lot of the early stories in Indian depredations in Texas deal with the Karankawa. So they were a major player, especially in early Texas history. They get undersold, not understandably, but they are kind of swept under the great Comanche rug, as it were. Like the Comanche and the Apache garner most of the attention in the study of Texas history, but the Karankawa are a mighty power, especially in people like Panfilo Narvaez, and who else am I trying to think of? Several conquistadors and pirates dealt with the Karankawas. They were the major southeastern coastal power, and notably tall, like a statuesque people, in comparison to like a lot of these early Texas settlers got used to tall, statuesque Karankawas, and then they would run into the Comanche and just be like, wait a second, what happened? No offense to the Comanche, I'm just saying, you guys know, stocky, powerfully built. Let's see. Get into Spain, fighting the Comanches out of San Antonio. Yeah, I've done a little bit of that. If you want a really cool episode on that, probably my favorite that I've done on that subject, look up Cuerno Verde's Revenge. It's probably from 2 or 3 years ago, but it regards the Spanish. Really, it's more far west Texas and New Mexico, but the Spanish trying to deal with this ruling Comanche chief, likely a Quahati, who just gave them fits. And he was known to have a very specific type of headdress where Cuerno Verde, greenhorn, came from. And in this area of southern Colorado as well, you'll see a lot of things named greenhorn, like Greenhorn, Colorado, and it comes from Cuerno Verde. Is that old 1900s video? If you're talking about the fight, I've seen a I've seen a colorized video of the Blackfoot, and they look huge. Yeah, the Blackfoot, the Cheyenne, a lot of the Plains tribes seemed in very much the James Fenimore Cooper mold of a tall, statuesque native. The Comanche, I think, for several reasons, were just genetically shorter, stockier. They had a far more open and integrated bloodline and policy of adoption, and just a different genetic lineage. But this isn't even like my take on it. Just several contemporaneous accounts are startled. Like even S.C. Gwynn remarks in Empire of the Summer Moon, how the newspaper accounts are a little, okay, by today's standards, are they a little racist? Yes, but they are, it's a little comical how shocked they are that these people who they find to be rather physically underwhelming, we could say, are dominating all of Texas. Like these people that they find short and stubby and unremarkable are holding back the entirety of American expansion. It is, quite the thing to think about. Comanche came out of the Northern Rockies, right, and went south as a shorter, stronger people. Sure, they were a mountain people too. Another thing not to underestimate. They were kind of a Shoshone offshoot, a subgroup of the Shoshone that came down from the Northern Rockies. They were just perpetually beleaguered. Whipping boy might not even be a strong enough term for it. They were just constantly beaten up, and it really developed a collective chip on their collective shoulder, if you will. Comanche, okay, we got that. The Karankawas hunted alligators. They would attack a ship in their dugout canoes, and they also were decent horsemen as well. In other words, they were sea, swamp, plains, and woodland warriors. Yeah, they were impressive. Really, they were just wiped out by smallpox. They were just hit hard and absolutely devastated by smallpox. I mean, yeah, lots of tribes were, but the Karankawa, they were hit early and they were hit hard. Early being 18 teens to 1830s. Let's see. Karankawas were tough. They were tall people. Got that. I was joking with you. I appreciate your commitment to learning and dedication to articulate the information in an entertaining way. Thanks, this guy. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming out. Good to see you. So Elijah, chill out, bro. What are you doing? Don't spam the chat. I have never had to block anybody. I don't want to have to block somebody. Mostly with Mexican Spanish blood, Mexican tribes, and especially Apache of various tribes. You're talking about the Comanche having an open policy of adoption. So Elijah, relax, man. No more numbers or I'm going to have to block you. And I hate to do that. Who is Zachary Taylor? Former general, prominent figure in the Mexican-American War. Who is, okay, got that. Okay, got that. Yes, Elijah, no more numbers, man. I'm not trying to be a hard ass. I'm just saying, spamming it. Comanche and the Kiowa have the most impure bloodlines of any tribe. Right, and we're saying this, just as from an academic observatory sense. It's just like a feature of the tribe. It's a feature, not a bug. It really helps develop their culture. It was also necessary because of the rates of both killed in action, right? Like it's a warrior culture. A lot of their young men die not only in battle, but in hunting. Like hunting is super duper dangerous. And then a high miscarriage rate, and just leads to adoption out of necessity, or you're going to have no people. And the Kiowa, the Comanche were a small tribe. We're talking like a couple dozen, tens of thousands, maybe, right? It's not very big. Like it would be like you could get them all together and it would be a small town in America. And the Kiowa were a fraction of that, like a few thousand, 5, maybe 10,000, but not very many at all, holding sway, holding court, holding rule over both tribes together. Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, large parts of New Mexico, large parts of Colorado, large parts of Kansas, just hundreds of thousands of square miles being controlled by what is effectively a small town and a very small modern day town. And that's it. Sue is stupid. So Elijah, one more chance, man. Can't call people stupid. Can't spam the chat with numbers. This is the gentleman's chat. It's an affair of esteemed and civilized folk. Google picture search Catlin's Indian gallery to see drawings. Yeah, I feature Catlin paintings and drawings all the time. Brilliant artist, really good at field paintings, where I feel like Remington was better at a studio kind of work. Maybe more epic paintings. Catlin, I think, gave you the feel like this is what I'm seeing right now. Like this is what is right in front of me. Estimated time to be 40. Yeah, that's a good point. Josh McAllister is saying the Comanche population before cholera, smallpox and cholera, they got hit really hard by cholera as well. The Comanche did, which is a disaster. It came over from India. It basically comes from lack of poop sanitation, pretty much. But before being hit in the 1830s and 40s by the epidemics, they were at 40 to 50,000. Yeah, that sounds right. And then after, I think they were maybe cut in half. But either way, even with 50,000, that would be like a mid to small sized town in America. They're ruling several states. It's crazy. 1875 estimated that their population was around 4,000 or 5,000. Yeah, 4,000 or 5,000 for the Comanche. So they've seen, what is that? Like a 90%, 80% reduction rate. The Kiowas were about 2,000-ish. Yeah, probably more like 1,500. Just, I mean, incredibly small. And this is 1875 is in the twilight of their reign over their territories before being confined to the reservation. But even then, what is that? Let's say at the most, let's be uber generous and say it's 10,000 combined, and it's not. Like, it's likely not that high, but let's say it's 10,000, and at the most, half of those are warriors, like fighting age warriors. Probably not. Probably more like a quarter. But let's say it's 5,000 warriors. 5,000 warriors stalled the U.S. Army out for years. Like, it's incredible. Our country was so different such a short time ago. Yes, a lot of this stuff, I think, on the grand scale was yesterday, so to speak. Like, it was just a blink of an eye ago. 90% reduction in population. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right, Josh? Thank you, man. I'm glad that what I'm saying is checking out with Josh, because Josh is a, like I said, extremely learned man on the minutia of the tribes, especially in the plains and the southeast. Well, no, the northeast too. Josh, you know everything, man. I've read the main driver of buffalo destruction was the New York City demand for leather and leather belts. Yeah, the Industrial Revolution really drove in a lot of ways. There's a lot of driving factors to the near extinction of the buffalo, but certainly, yeah, the factories and they needed leather straps to run the machinery. That was a big driving force. Also, a lot of accounts will say that, like, well, just getting rid of the buffalo meant that you were hampering and hindering and ultimately destroying the native tribes, because you were taking away their basically their whole livelihood, right? Then in another kind of 27 degrees of separation factor in American history is that the fashion industry drove the near extinction of the beaver, like, because they were basically used to make top hats, like felt top hats, like kind of like what Slash wears, right? And the popular demand for that drove the mountain men trade and nearly drove the beaver to extinction. But it's like, sometimes we forget, we know about the what. It's like, oh yeah, the beaver were almost driven to extinction by the fur trade. But we forget about the why. It's like, well, it's because, well, why did that happen? It's like, well, because dudes really love to wear top hats. It's like, what? Let's see, Red Cloud as well. I'm not sure what we're talking about there. The Comanche are lucky that Ranald McKenzie didn't show up earlier. Maybe, but maybe McKenzie was lucky he didn't show up earlier, and that campaign in particular took so much out of him. I think that particular campaign, yes, McKenzie went north right after the Red River War, and he was the defining factor in why the Army, in my opinion, was able to eventually, for lack of a more genteel term, corral the Kiowa and Comanche But I think that particular campaign took more out of him than maybe the Civil War. And he'd already been wounded several times, been through the entire Civil War, fought at Gettysburg, I believe Antietam, the first or second Battle of Bull Run, um, the Siege of St. Petersburg, I believe. It's just a tragic story. And I don't know, but yes, you're right. Yeah, I agree that he was the defining factor in eventually and finally defeating the Comanche. But man, that guy just paid a terrible price, and we don't really know what happened to him, but we know basically within a decade of being in the field fighting the Comanche, he was in a sanitarium in a mental hospital effectively losing his mind. Like, and he passed away, I believe, at age 48, very, very young, died in a sanitarium in Long Island, where his family kind of committed him to. And nobody really knows what happened other than he just lost his mind. Some people proffer PTSD, some people proffer traumatic and chronic traumatic encephalitis, CTE. I would go somewhere in between there. Some people say syphilis. I think that's a little mean. I think that's not very nice. But some people say that. But I don't know. Poor guy lost his mind, though. Poor guy lost his mind. A real tragedy, because he was held maybe second only to Custer. He was the Army's rising star. And then a decade later, he's dying in a sanitarium in Long Island. Let's see. Going back to what you said about American expansion, is it far to say that they are among the few to hold back U.S. interests militarily for an extended period? I mean, the Comanche and Kiowa are some of the smallest forces, but I mean, no, listen, I'm not even trying to be mean, but like, no, man, like you could look at certainly the Kiowa and the Comanche, but like the Viet Cong, the Afghanis, there's a list of like enemies that have held the U.S. interests back for an extent. But if you mean in America, yeah, I'd say they're relatively unique there. People will argue, I think, fairly, the Seminole, the Nez Perce, but the Comanche held them back for the longest, I would say, and the most vociferously. Josh is saying, yes, they did, absolutely. They held civilization back, the expansion of American civilization for 300. Yeah, and to be, yes, great point, Josh. Not just American expansion, Spanish, French, English, Mexican expansion. Like, they held back everybody, and they also drove out the Comanche. They drove out the Apache and the Tonkawa, for a period, the Cheyenne. Like, they were, I think, relatively unintentionally an expansionist empire themselves. They wanted all the smoke. For real, they did. They wanted all the smoke. Mackenzie would have got his ass kicked if he tried the Comanche any year before the Civil War. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, the Comanche were too strong, and the weaponry wasn't there, as you're saying here. Yeah, the repeating firearms, they didn't have that yet. I think the best anybody was going to do before the advent of repeating rifles and Civil War era technology was what the Rangers were doing. It's kind of like the Michael Jordan quote, like, you can't beat Jordan, you can only hope to contain him. It's kind of like that with the Comanche. Like, you couldn't beat them. It was not only that you couldn't beat them, you couldn't find them. Like, it wasn't that the Texans never won an engagement. They won plenty of engagements. It just affected to nothing. You couldn't stop them because they were a thief in the night. You couldn't find them. They would hit and then they'd disappear. So all you could really hope to do was to kind of hopefully contain their attacks. But you can, as S.C. Gwynn says in Empire of the Summer Moon, you can draw a line from basically Dallas to Austin to San Antonio, and that's basically as far as that's as far west as American civilization got for centuries. For just centuries, that's as far as they could go, because the Kiowa and the Comanche just decided, like, no, this is ours. It's wildly impressive. Imagine going from fighting in organized European battles to engaging with the Comanche. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. That's why the Rangers are in objectively, in my view, impressive. They had to adapt and in many ways invent a style of warfare that wasn't unheard of, right? Guerrilla fighting was around before the 1820s, 30s, 40s, but it was in woodland areas. This is the first time that that men are being confronted with essentially an ocean, essentially a grassland ocean, wide open spaces, and having to also wage guerrilla warfare on a fighting force that is probably the best mounted military force in the Western Hemisphere, we could say. I think I could say that comfortably. Mackenzie would have got, yeah, we got that. It was the experience of, let's see, I need to go in order here. The hill country started on that line. Yeah, absolutely. Imagine going from, okay, we got that. A round of champagne on me if my new video hits 250,000 by tomorrow afternoon. If I were monetized, I'd be an $8. You got a new video? An engineer? What do you mean? Do you have a new video out? Let me see. I don't see. Well, go click on engineer in Hickory Stripe Hats. He's a repeat viewer, so click on his channel. Go give his video a watch. His video a watch. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Space Cowboy says guerrilla fighting. Yeah, man. It's something America seems to have to learn like repeatedly. That's not even a dig. I'm just saying that as a historical observation. Because even in Texas, what the Rangers learned was forgotten 30 years later. We talk about that in, we just did the El Blanco Canyon, the Battle of El Blanco Canyon that came out 10 days or so ago. But the mistakes that Mackenzie was making, this is Mackenzie's first time on the frontier, and he's letting his men light fires. He's letting them behave like you would in the Civil War. And Jack Hayes, Bigfoot Wallace, et al., name your ranger from 30 years before, would have been horrified at this, would have been just aghast, like that you would do that. You're just essentially giving your position away, telling the Comanche, like, please come attack me, please come attack me. So virtually all of the things that the Rangers had learned were kind of really lost to the institution, because the Rangers, I think a lot of people don't understand, the Rangers weren't a standing force. They were disbanded and reassembled time and again in the interceding couple of decades. So the institutional knowledge wasn't really passed along as well as you would like. And thus, not a lot of progress was made against the Comanche for a long time. It was the experience of warring with the natives that helped win against the British. Yeah, absolutely. I think Comanches weren't trying to conquer anything or be. No, I agree. They weren't trying to be an empire. I think they were just the epitome of a warrior culture, says Josh. Yeah, I agree with this. They incessantly raided, even in the winter, if they had, let's see. But yes, yeah, I agree with that, Josh. They weren't an intentional, hopefully I was making that clear, maybe not, that they weren't an intentional empire. They were kind of just a de facto empire. It was just like if Mike Tyson wasn't given an official heavyweight title, it's like, well, yeah, but this guy just like hits people. This is just what this guy does. Give him a belt or don't give him a belt. Like this guy's still the best at what he does. So they weren't trying to build an empire. They weren't trying to expand. They were underrated businessmen. They had a expansive and long-lasting trade network that ranged from Colorado to New Mexico to Texas, really to like parts of Louisiana and Kansas. So they were underestimated businessmen. But no, they weren't trying to build an empire. They were just kicking everyone's ass. They were just beating everybody and driving them out of the territory. And once they drove them out of a territory, they just took the territory. So it was just like, I'm not a real estate mogul per se. I just drive everyone out of their house. It's not easy to beat an enemy that has home field advantage. Exactly. First and foremost, the home team is always going to fight like they have something to lose. Absolutely. Because they do. Correct. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Space Cowboy. Attacking anyone who wasn't Comanche that entered their territory without permission or notifying them in any way. Yeah. You can think of this like I mean this in a detached academic way, but you can think of all of North and South America as an extended gang war for territories, and there's no overarching federal or state law enforcement presence. So it's just this continuing centuries long gang war. And yes, much like you would have to today, if you go to someone's territory, you got to check in with them, right? This is what I've heard. So if you didn't check in with the Comanche and you were just like rolling through their territory, no, they were going to take you out. It was bad news. It's interesting how the Comanche and the Aztecs were both relative newcomers to their area. Correct. They were both brutal, and everyone ganged up on them when the Europeans arrived and they were given the chance. Yes, that's another thing. The Comanches engendered a lot of hatred towards them. So the Tonkawa, especially when the army arrived and when the Rangers started coalescing, the Tonkawa were more than willing to be scouts for any force combating the Comanche. They just had a decades, if not century-long standing enmity with them. Great account of how deep this runs is from Herman Lehman's account. I think it's 9 years with the Indians, something like that. He had been captured by the Apache, actually escaped the Apache and joined up with the Comanche. And when he was with the Comanche war party that happened upon a Tonkawa war party that had slain a Comanche and were eating them, as the Tonkawa were known to do. It's why the Comanche hated them in part so much, because they were known to be cannibalistic. But the Comanches just became irate at this and started dismembering. They attacked the Tonkawa and basically cut them up like cordwood, and then threw them on a big bonfire. And Herman Lehman says, like, well, we watched them squiggle around like worms. And it's like, cool, bro. I don't know what you want me to do with that. But they very much hated they hated the Tonkawa. Herman was an intense dude. They were excellent traders, says Josh. Yeah, I think they just don't get enough cred for that. They were totally great warriors, but like they were great businessmen. I had to rewind, but yes, you're right. I think U.S. officer training would dust off the Indian Wars. Not sure what that means, but thank you, this guy. If you can rephrase that a little bit for me, I'll pick up on it. Yeah, it's a good point, Josh. I was just going to bring this up. The Comanche and the Aztec share the same language origin from the Uto-Aztecan language. Yes, the Comanche came down from the Northern Rockies, and really the Aztec came down south from the Southern Rockies, I believe, right? I may have that mixed up, but oh man, the Apache and the Tonkawa hated the Comanche. Yes, the Apache as well. They I mean, like, not kind of hated them, like they hated them for generations, hated them. I'm reading that book at the moment, Herman Lehman. Yeah, that's a great book. It's an intense read. He's just telling the stories in his own words, but every story he tells you is just like, oh, like if this guy was sitting next to you at a bar, you'd find a reason to leave pretty quickly. Not because he's mean, just because you're just like, all right, bro, you got to chill out with these crazy stories. He's like, we found these people, and then we cut their hands off, and then we found these people, and then we shot them, and then we took all their horses, and then we found these people. And he's like, all right, listen. Okay, I'm trying to have a beer. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna go another couple minutes here, and then I got to finish up this. What are we doing? I don't know if we have this. I have a side story and a episode in the pipeline with the editor right now. I got to see which one is ready to go. They all hated each other. Yeah, that you just don't see. The Comanche were really the last to be relegated to the reservation, so that their enemies had more time to work against them. Let's see. But that's a good point, Theo Wise. It was no different than European countries, like long-standing enmities there that resulted in World War I. I believe everything that Herman says as far as the violence. Yeah. I think you can take a lot of these accounts with a grain of salt, but in general, Herman's not doing himself any favors. Like, he's kind of getting stuff off his chest, it seems more like because he's telling these stories. They're horrible. Like, this is like somebody that had been, I'm just trying to give you an analogy. I'm not making a direct comparison here, But this is like somebody who had been in the mafia telling you the hits that they'd done. Like, this is heavy duty stuff. It doesn't behoove him in 1920s society to say, oh, I did all this stuff. Like it's just, it seems like more of a cathartic exercise for him in some ways. Like he's just getting this off of his chest. But he was a wild boy. He was a wild dude. Him and Adolf Korn were pretty wild. I wonder if anyone in prehistory was ever able to unite most of the tribes. My hunch is no. My hunch is not to any consequential degree. And I make this point probably too often, but I think it's apt and applicable that almost every tribe calls themselves the people. Maybe it's the people of the woods or the people of the mountains or the people of the lakes or something, but it's a very definitive, like, we are the people. We're the people. That means that if you're not with us, you're not the people. You're not a people. So it's I think they were always rather separatist, always open to allies, but I don't think there was any union to a great degree. DOY is a $10 super chat, man. Thank you very much. Again, if you have a message that you want me to get out there, any HOKC propaganda, let me know, man. Thank you. Let's see. La Raza. Yeah, very similar concept, Space Cowboy. Not necessarily it's even supremacist, but it's certainly separatist. Plains Indians remind me of Gallic tribes in France, Germany. Yeah, I think the fair comparison is Huns and the Mongols as well. This is exactly like a hitman telling his hits. Yeah, thanks. I had never really even thought of that before. I just blurted it out, but it's like, yeah, he's not doing himself any favors in the great detail that he goes into. He's only going to creep you out more. So I think you can take most of it at face value. Y'all got any good hiking trails around Austin? Oh man, we're replete with them. The Greenbelt, start with the Greenbelt, the Barton Creek Greenbelt. They just like redid the hiking trail. So go to Zilker Park, hike down, hike back, cool off at Barton Springs, bingo bango. That's an Austin biathlon. Let's see. I would think if anyone was able to unite lots of the country in prehistory, they were probably mound builders or pyramid builders, had lots of people under their control. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure there was periods of cooperation and maybe like incorporation, but I don't think there was any great massive, confederation. But even the Iroquois was after European contact. So I don't know of any sizable confederations in prehistory. Jake and HOKC. And y'all heard of the Cahokia? Have y'all heard of the Cahokia civilization in Illinois? Yeah, absolutely. I don't cover a lot of that because I can't find stuff on their battles. I'm such a conflict-oriented channel that like I can't find a lot of stuff on the Cahokia mound builders battles. Maybe I should look a little more, but I'm certainly aware of them. I just haven't found a way to talk about them very much. They have a massive city that housed thousands. Yeah, I mean, Tenochtitlan was bigger and more advanced in a lot of ways than any city in Europe when the Spanish found it, or they yeah, we could say found it. Let's see. Who remembers when Ross Perot called Lulac? I don't remember that. All I remember, Ross Perot was when I was a very little kid. I remember big ears and like high pitched voice. This is Ross Perot and Dana Carvey doing him on Saturday Night Live. My ex did a lot of digging at Cahokia. I don't know if that's a metaphor or not. See. All right, I'm going to do 5 more minutes, guys. And then I'm going to go finish this episode. It's always a balance. Like, I'm always trying to get the episodes out, but do the live streams, and like, you always feel like you're not doing enough. But got to make sure it's good. I'm the only guy doing it too. So like, I have the editor and myself. So like every picture, everything, I got to like double check. So it takes time. And if I get talking, I'll start talking and talking and talking. And before I know it, which is, hey, couldn't be happier to spend time here. But it's like, oh man, then I didn't get to my episode. This channel rules. Thanks, man. Everybody here rules, dude. I really have I look forward to seeing everybody. Like Bama Deanna's not here, and I miss Bama Deanna. Like everybody's they're friends. Everybody's a friend of mine now. So I look forward to seeing everybody. It's like hanging out at the bar. Jake, check it out. The Cahokia Mound Builders disappeared, right? Weren't they seen first by Deanza? Can't believe I'm forgetting what conquistador saw them first. But then when he came back, they were basically all gone. Let's see. Am I missing? I think I'm caught up on the chats. No Bama tonight. Yeah, no Bama tonight. Let's see. I was in Austin October 5th, 2024, and it was 93 degrees. Oh, yeah. Then that's just October 5th. You got to get into like the third week of October before it starts cooling down. Sounds like a good side story. You know, this, if you got here late or whatever, right? This story that I just read earlier tonight is going to be a side story as well. So if you want the condensed version of that without the commentary, that should be out a day or two, maybe tomorrow. It doesn't take very long. The Osages lived in the Cahokia area. What's up, Indian Wildcat? Good to see you, man. So the Osages came to the Cahokia area after the Cahokia disappeared. Need to do more on the Osages too. They were down. They were down to go. They had a lot of fights with especially the Kiowa. We did one on the massacre at Cutthroat Gap, where the Osage massacred the Kiowa village at the Cutthroat Gap. It's called Cutthroat Gap because of the massacre. It is like hanging out at a bar, says Josh McAllister. I used to work at a bar, so maybe I just lost my taste for bars, but I don't really go to bars. So like this is as close as I get. So I look forward to it. Let's see. All right. So I think I'm caught up. I'm going to get back to the grindstone here. Like I said, this should be a side story out hopefully tomorrow. Then also another live, hopefully at least one more live coming this weekend, maybe two if I can fit that in. Then the Dade Massacre is coming up. I'm really excited for you guys to see this. We've done the Seminole Wars before, but this is the first one from the second Seminole Wars, and it's super intense and action-packed. I think you guys are going to like it. Then we have some more coming up in our Dark History series. Plenty of shorts. If you guys have any like short suggestions, like let me know. Email me, history@theokcorral@gmail.com. Because I'm trying to pick the most compelling parts of episodes for shorts. So if there's a compelling part of an episode that you haven't seen as a short yet, let me know. And let's see, what else do we have coming up? So the next short or the next live stream, they always kind of get mixed up, but we'll have a movie night. We still need to do the right stuff movie night. And then the big fight between Jack Dempsey and Jess Willard as kind of the end of the Old West era in a lot of ways and the beginning of the Roaring 20s. Really, it happened in 1919, but you know. Then what else do we got? We'll do, like I said, more live streams. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not leaving anything out. And yeah, the pipeline's full, guys. So worry not. Fear not. We have lots of stuff coming your way, and can't wait for you guys to see it. So without any further ado, good to see everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out. And have a good night. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.